This anime takes place in a fantasy world where humans and monsters coexist. One day, a group of human warriors launches an attack on a dragon's lair. Surprisingly, the dragon barely puts up a fight. Instead, it just accepts its fate, waiting for death at the hands of a hero. However, at the northern border of the kingdom, that very same dragon is reborn as Dolan, an ordinary boy from a humble family. Retaining memories of his past life, Dolan grows up as a hardworking farmer. In his village, it's tradition that once someone turns 15, they're considered an adult and must live independently. To make a living, Dolan spends his days farming or fishing in the river. One day, after finishing his fishing trip, a child named Eri comes to fetch him for magic training. Aside from honing his magic skills, Dolan also attends potion-making classes with his instructor. Later that afternoon, the village chief introduces him to a knight named Christina, a student from the Royal Academy who will be staying in the village for a while. That evening, Dolan visits his parents' home, bringing fresh ingredients for dinner. During their meal, his father casually suggests that he should start looking for a wife so he won't feel lonely. But Dolan doesn't seem too interested in marriage yet. He's perfectly happy enjoying his peaceful life alone. The next day, Dolan decides to investigate the swamp near the Lizardmen settlement. Normally, this would be the city guard's responsibility, but since they're too busy protecting the village, Dolan takes it upon himself. The Lizardmen usually visit the village regularly, but they haven't shown up in a while, so he wants to check on them. Upon arriving at the swamp, Dolan unexpectedly encounters a Lamia girl. However, he quickly realizes that the Lizardmen are no longer there. The entire area has been corrupted by an earth spirit. The Lamia girl assures him that she's not there to fight, but before they can continue their conversation, a massive earth spirit suddenly appears and attacks. Without hesitation, Dolan leaps into action, rescuing the Lamia girl and leading her to safety. She then introduces herself as Selena. As a Lamia, she possesses a unique form of magic that is highly effective against earth spirits. With that in mind, Dolan comes up with a strategy. He'll keep the spirit occupied while Selena prepares her spell to take it down. As the earth spirit charges toward them, the battle begins. Dolan defends Selena, giving her time to chant a spell that immobilizes the enemy. Once the spirit is paralyzed, Dolan finishes it off with a sword strike infused with dragon magic. The spirit is defeated, but before it vanishes completely, it splashes Selena with a wave of mud. That night, Selena reveals that she's been traveling in search of a husband. However, unlike other races, she has a hard time finding a partner because her body secretes a natural toxin. Hearing her struggles, Dolan offers words of encouragement, assuring her that she'll eventually find someone who accepts her. Before parting ways, he tells her to visit his village with her future husband once her journey is complete. After leaving Dolan, Selena continues south in search of a partner. Unfortunately, everyone she meets is terrified of her because she's a Lamia. Meanwhile, Dolan attends his potion-making class. After finishing his lessons and eating lunch, he moves on to his daily training. On his way to the training grounds, he's offered fresh milk by Miu, a girl from the cow-human race. Miu is well known for sharing her delicious milk with everyone in the village, and Dolan, unable to resist, gladly accepts. Upon reaching the training site, Dolan senses a demonic presence in the area. Wanting to confirm his suspicion, he returns later that night. After investigating, he discovers that the aura is coming from Selena, who's hiding at the edge of the forest near his village. At that moment, Selena is busy cleaning herself up. Seeing her stunning figure, Dolan finds himself frozen in place, unable to look away. Embarrassed, Selena immediately slaps him. After the awkward moment passes, Selena explains why she's there. Dolan then invites her to stay in his village. Even though humans fear demons, Dolan is determined to find a way to help the villagers accept Selena. The next day, the villagers were baffled to find a large number of hunted animals left in their village. Based on the tracks, they speculated that a Lamia was responsible. Panic quickly spread, with many suggesting they report the situation to the kingdom and form an attack squad. In the midst of the commotion, an elderly woman named Muggle stepped in to calm everyone down. Relying on her foresight, she claimed that the Lamia's presence was actually a good omen. While skepticism remained, her words were enough to ease the tension and convince the villagers to wait and see how things unfolded. Seeing how the situation was playing out, Dolan informed Selena that their plan had worked. Her gift had left an impression. However, there was one final step. Selena needed to stage a dramatic rescue during a joint training exercise. Dolan planned to rush into a wild beast's den, creating the perfect opportunity for Selena to save him. That way, the villagers would see her as a benevolent demon rather than a threat. But things took an unexpected turn during the exercise. Out of nowhere, a heavily armored bear wandered into the training area. Just as it was about to pounce on a child watching nearby, Selena jumped in and unleashed her intimidating Lamia glare. The bear backed off and retreated into the forest, but not before landing a scratch on Selena. Even though she had just saved a villager, the people were still hesitant to trust her. However, the situation didn't stay tense for long. Selena managed to convince them that she meant no harm. To solidify her case, the Earth Goddess herself reassured the villagers of Selena's good intentions. With that divine approval, Selena was finally accepted by the entire village. Later that night, as Dolan slept, he used his abilities to project his soul and meet his friend Myral, the Earth God. Dolan wanted to personally thank Myral for helping convince the villagers about Selena. Curious, Dolan asked how Myral knew he had been reincarnated as a human. Myral explained that he could sense the overwhelming joy radiating from Dolan's soul and heart. Before long, Selena showed up at Dolan's house to wake him up. Today, she wanted him to join her and Christina in planting potatoes. Meanwhile, back in the city, news of missing women was starting to spread. Around the same time, the academy headmaster received a letter from Christina describing her experiences in the village. She wrote that while life in the village was harsh, she enjoyed the daily combat training she received. After training, she often had lunch with Baran, one of the villagers. As a gesture of hospitality, some villagers even suggested hosting a welcome party for her. Christina was touched. Despite the village's rugged lifestyle, the people were incredibly kind and welcoming, even to outsiders like herself. That night, Christina continued her sword training outside. When Selena and Dolan saw her practicing alone, they approached her and invited her over to Selena's house. Once there, Selena proudly showed off her favorite possession, a custom-made Lamia mattress. She raved about how incredibly comfortable it was. Curious, Christina tried it out and immediately agreed. Without hesitation, both Selena and Christina pulled Dolan onto the mattress to join them. The next morning, Christina paid a visit to Baran's house, eager to try the milk his wife was always bragging about. After taking a sip, she found it delicious. Baran, not one to back down from a challenge, proposed a milk drinking contest. In the end, Christina held her ground while Baran struggled and had to admit defeat. Meanwhile, at a noble gathering, whispers about Christina's supposed connection to a Lamia began circulating. A sorcerer named Kiran took a particular interest in Selena. She warned others not to underestimate the Lamia race as they were incredibly powerful. More concerning, Kiran suspected that Selena might be linked to the recent string of disappearances. Back in the village, Dolan, Selena, and Christina were busy planting potatoes when a guard suddenly arrived with an urgent message. They were ordered to report to the village gate immediately. Upon arrival, the border inspector demanded that Selena be taken in for an evaluation to ensure public safety. Despite her proving time and again that she wasn't a malicious demon, the officials insisted that standard procedures had to be followed. As the one who had invited Selena to the village, Dolan decided to accompany her. He wanted to make sure she wouldn't have to face this alone. On their way to the examination site, an inspector named Gouda struck up a conversation with Dolan and Selena, discussing several important matters. Eventually, they arrived at their destination, the home of Kiran. Surprisingly, Kiran greeted them warmly and immediately invited them to dinner, displaying an unusual level of hospitality. From the start, it was clear that Kiran had been determined to bring them there. She admitted that she was worried the villagers had been manipulated by Selena's Lamia gaze. However, after meeting her in person, her concerns faded and she assured them that she now trusted them completely. But just as dinner ended, both Dolan and Selena suddenly collapsed, poisoned. At the same time, Gouda met with the academy headmaster to discuss the growing number of missing persons cases. Gouda suspected that the culprit was a 300-year-old sorcerer who had been using forbidden magic to steal the bodies of young women to extend her own life. Upon hearing this, the headmaster immediately realized the truth. The sorcerer was none other than Kiran. Without wasting any time, they set off to stop her before she could claim her next victim. Meanwhile, Kiran was preparing her forbidden magic. Her plan? To steal Selena's body to enhance her own beauty. When Dolan regained consciousness from the poisoning, he immediately demanded to know what Kiran was up to. Confident in her superiority, Karen arrogantly revealed her entire plan, boasting about the crimes she had committed. What she didn't realize was that Gouda had been listening from a distance. Using a magical device that transmitted sound, Gouda secured undeniable proof that Kiran was behind the recent kidnappings and murders. With the evidence in hand, Gouda launched a raid to apprehend her. However, capturing Karen was no easy task. She had fused multiple bodies through magic, transforming into a monstrous being with terrifying power. Selena used her demonic gaze to temporarily immobilize her, while Christina attacked with her expert swordsmanship. But even that wasn't enough to bring Karen down. She then unleashed dark magic, summoning a powerful spirit. Realizing the escalating danger, Dolan ordered Christina to fall back. He then unleashed his ultimate spell, obliterating Karen completely, leaving no trace behind. A few days later, life returned to normal. Dolan took the opportunity to teach Selena how to read. Before long, Gouda and Chief Olivia paid them a visit. Gouda personally apologized for dragging them into the case and, as a gesture of goodwill, officially granted Selena permission to reside in the kingdom. With this recognition, Selena was now a legitimate citizen, free to travel without restrictions. However, despite her official status, people in the city still viewed her with fear. This made her uneasy, and she soon grew restless staying there. The next day, Dolan and Christina trained the village children. During the session, some kids played with Selena, a sight that reassured Dolan. She was finally adjusting to life among humans. Shortly after, Christina invited Dolan into the forest, eager to test her skills against the wild beasts. Coincidentally, they had also been assigned to guard nearby livestock alongside fully equipped guards. As they ventured deeper, one of the guards encountered a wild tiger. Baran swiftly took it down, but their relief was short-lived. A colossal spider-like monster suddenly appeared. Baran was powerless against it, leaving Dolan as their only hope. Dolan quickly identified the creature as a low-ranking demon world inhabitant, strong enough to overpower regular humans. To defeat it, he immobilized the monster while Christina delivered the finishing blow. Following the incident, Dolan met with the village chief to request permission to explore the forest. He decided to bring Selena along. Christina wanted to join as well, but the chief forbade her for safety reasons. The next morning, Dolan and Selena set off, only to find Christina already waiting at the entrance. Despite being forbidden from leaving the village, she had made up her mind. She was coming along to help resolve the crisis. After discussing their options, the trio decided to take on the monsters together. During their journey, Christina spotted what she thought was a new type of monster. But as she approached, she realized it was just a regular wild animal. Selena effortlessly tamed it by offering food. Soon, other small creatures gathered around Dolan. Initially wary, they too warmed up once given food. Encouraged by Selena, Christina hesitantly offered some, only to be surprised at how easily the creatures accepted her as well. As they rested, a fairy suddenly appeared, urgently warning them to flee. Monsters were approaching. Instead of running, Dolan and his friends stood their ground, determined to fight. Through their combined efforts, they managed to defeat the monsters and protect the fairy clan. Once the battle was over, the forest-dwelling fairies emerged and expressed their gratitude for saving one of their own. However, since the forest was their domain, they advised Dolan and his companions to leave, especially since demonic forces were starting to invade the area. Upon hearing this, Christina refused to stand by and do nothing. She was adamant about helping the fairies fight back against the demon army. Dolan agreed and urged the fairy leader to allow them to assist in eliminating the threat. Initially hesitant, Geo, the fairy leader, eventually relented after being convinced by his people. Soon after, a massive gate to the demon world suddenly opened. From it, demons and monsters began pouring in. The situation turned dire, and the fairies had no choice but to retreat to their village to fortify their defenses. Meanwhile, Giarud, one of the demon commanders, was preparing for a full-scale attack. To make things more sinister, the demons treated it as a twisted game, competing to see who could find their enemies first. Before long, Giarud reached the fairy stronghold and launched a brutal assault, wreaking havoc on the fairy forces. Fortunately, a black rose spirit named Diodora intervened, stopping Giarud before he could inflict more damage. Meanwhile, Dolan and his team were still making their way to the fairy village, battling every monster that stood in their way. Utilizing magical stones, they unleashed powerful spells, wiping out waves of enemies as they fought their way forward. Deep within the fairy stronghold, Diadora managed to trap Gearud using enchanted vines. But before she could finish him off, Raffracia appeared to challenge her. Like Diadora, Raffracia was a flower spirit, but from the demon world. She thrived by absorbing blood and souls, draining the life out of any plant she touched. Despite Raffracia's strength, Diadora's attacks managed to wound her. Cornered, Raffracia and Gearud joined forces, launching a devastating counterattack. Just as Diadora was about to fall, Dolan and his allies arrived to turn the tide. As Dolan reached out to help Diadora, an enemy tried to strike from behind, but Christina and the fairy warriors swiftly intervened. Raffracia, initially frustrated, suddenly smiled. Reinforcements had arrived. Her elite demon army had emerged from the demon gate. The situation was growing dire, but Selena refused to back down. She summoned a 7-headed serpent to ensnare her foes, while Dolan unleashed his magic, combining explosive spells with spear attacks. However, one of Selena's restrained demons broke free and attempted a counterattack. Christina intercepted the blow, not just defending, but retaliating with her weapon-enhancing magic, striking her opponent at close range. Seizing the moment, Selena cast earth magic to immobilize the enemy while bombarding them with dark magic. Dolan, too, continued his assault, keeping the demons on their toes. But just as victory seemed within reach, Georg, the strongest of the demon warriors, arrived. Dolan immediately recognized the threat. This wasn't just any demon. After assessing his opponent, Dolan struck first, unleashing his dragon magic. Georg was familiar with such attacks but had no time to dwell on it, as Dolan pressed forward with relentless explosions. Unfortunately, Georg's shield and sword nullified the damage. Realizing he couldn't win in his human form, Dolan knew he had to hold back. Unleashing his full power could destroy the fairy village. For now, he relied solely on his swordsmanship. Sensing the opening, Georg began gathering mana for a devastating final attack. Meanwhile, Raffracia and her forces attempted another assault, but Dolan countered with long-range magic. When Georg fired his ultimate attack, Dolan skillfully deflected it, ensuring his allies remained safe. Recognizing Dolan's restraint, Georg chose to delay their battle, giving the fairies 3 days to decide their fate. As the forest elders convened, Olivia, the academy headmaster, and a native of the village joined them. She offered her assistance in devising a strategy. They agreed to rally all capable knights aiming to destroy the demon gate and drive the invaders out. Dolan pledged his support, earning the respect of the fairy warriors despite being an outsider. Meanwhile, the demon army prepared for their next battle. Georg anticipated a fierce confrontation, suspecting Dolan to be the ancient dragon god who once ravaged the demon realm. That night, Dolan approached the injured Diadora, offering to heal her with purification magic. She accepted, though his healing methods made her question his humanity. Later, Dolan rejoined Selena for dinner. Watching Christina devour her meal at an alarming rate, Selena couldn't help but wonder how she stayed so slim despite eating so much. When the village fell silent, Selena sat alone outside, lost in thought. Dolan noticed and joined her, both of them marveling at the serene beauty of the fairy village under the night sky. Dolan then addressed her directly. He had noticed her unease after the day's battle and apologized for involving her in the fight. Selena dismissed the notion. Her anxiety wasn't about combat, but about her inability to kill, even when necessary. She felt like a failure of a Lamia. Dolan smiled. To him, Selena wasn't weak. She was kind. Nothing like the cruel rumors about her kind. He encouraged her to embrace her nature and be proud of it. He assured her she didn't need to change because he admired her just as she was. Before leaving, he handed her something to aid in the upcoming battle. The next day, the fairy army gathered, determined to defend their land. At the demon gate, they faced off against the demon commander, Garen. Selena soon joined the fight. When she struck Garen, she noticed her attacks were significantly stronger. Dolan's magic stone was working perfectly. Elsewhere, on their way to the main gate, Christina worried about Selena's safety. Even with the fairy warriors by her side, she felt uneasy but couldn't turn back. The demons had blocked their path. Determined, she faced the enemy head-on, while Dolan pressed forward. During the fight, Gearud repeatedly called Christina a superhuman, a term she had never heard before. Meanwhile, Diadora clashed fiercely with Raffracia. This time, she fought with everything she had, unleashing her long-sealed power, a black rose capable of consuming all life. Reincarnation attempted to absorb it, but only succeeded in becoming the flower's host. Black roses bloomed from her body as she screamed in agony. Exhausted, Diodora collapsed, surrounded by monsters. But before they could strike, Dolan arrived, cutting them down effortlessly. Noticing his wings, Diodora grew more convinced that Dolan wasn't human. Dolan confirmed her suspicions. While he was now human, his soul had once been that of a dragon. With Diodora safe, Dolan resumed his march toward the Demon Gate. Meanwhile, Selena suffered a severe wound, impaled by a wooden stake. Confused, she barely remembered what had happened. The fairies removed the stake and used magic to ease her pain. But strangely, she healed rapidly, even without healing magic. It seemed Dolan's magic stone was working wonders. Elsewhere, Christina's battle with Gearud raged on. Despite striking him multiple times, he remained standing. Then, he revealed the truth about superhumans, an incredibly rare breed of humans with the power to defeat even the strongest demons and ancient dragons. Inspired, Christina pushed past her limits and finally defeated Gearud. In the demon realm, Dolan finally confronted Georg. There, they could fight at full strength without endangering the human world. Meanwhile, Theo urged Selena to flee the battlefield, but Selena, reinvigorated by Dolan's gift, chose to stay and fight. As the fairy knights struggled against Garen, Selena arrived, her resolve unwavering. With her demonic eyes and unique magic, she overwhelmed Garen, taking him down with ease. Back in the demon realm, Dolan and Georg faced off. Dolan declared he would erase Georg's existence, not just an empty threat. From the start, Dolan had Georg on the defensive. Outside the gate, a heated debate ensued. Should they destroy the gate to prevent more demons from escaping? Dolan's allies refused, unwilling to seal the gate before he returned. Despite being battered, Georg launched a final attack using dark magic, only for Dolan to counter with a dragon's breath. He then slashed Georg apart, ending the battle. From the shadows, a mysterious woman watched, her eyes gleaming with familiarity. It seemed she had known Dolan for a long time. Shortly after, Dolan emerged from the Demon Gate, only to be embraced by a worried Selena. With him safe, the fairies destroyed the gate, erasing the demon threat from their world. To celebrate their victory, the villagers held a grand festival. Though still recovering, everyone enjoyed the festivities. Selena and Christina donned traditional fairy dancer attire, looking stunning in their elegant costumes. Seeing them like that, Dolan felt like he had won the ultimate prize. He invited Selena to dance, and as they moved together, they shared their deepest thoughts. Later that night, Dolan heard Christina singing an old song about a hero and a white dragon, a melody passed down through her family. It stirred memories of his past life. But before he could reflect further, Dolan was suddenly stabbed. However, the next morning, he awoke in his room, perfectly unharmed. Dolan started his morning by checking the fields. Afterward, he spent time with the village children, telling them stories about dragons. Once he was done looking after them, he was approached by Diodora and a few other elves from the village. Together, they strolled through a temporary bazaar, which had been set up thanks to the arrival of the forest dwellers. The village had never been this lively before, and the residents were grateful to Dolan for giving them the opportunity to trade. As they wandered around, Diodora playfully teased Christina and Selena. The scent of black roses from her made Selena stick to her like glue. During lunch, Selena invited Dolan to go hunting with Baran. At first, everything seemed normal. But when they encountered a bear, they took it down without a shred of mercy. Selena didn't even bat an eye, treating it as just another hunt. Later that day, while Dolan was checking the fields, Aerie suddenly started acting strangely. She questioned why he was still tending to the crops when everyone was planning to leave the village. Unbeknownst to Dolan, the entire village had already decided to move on and find a new home. Shocked by the revelation, Dolan immediately sought out the village elders. He opposed their decision, arguing that there was no guarantee they'd find a place willing to take them in. However, their minds were already made up. They were tired of living in this village, convinced they had no future here. The next day, the villagers began their exodus. Even Dolan's own family left without hesitation, abandoning him. After their departure, Christina bluntly called Dolan stubborn, feeling sorry for him for refusing to leave. That night, Dolan visited Selena's house. For a moment, he felt at ease. Selena was still acting as if everything was normal, as if there were no plans to leave. She even went out of her way to prepare food just for him. However, their quiet evening was interrupted when Dolan saw his house engulfed in flames. Christina had deliberately set it on fire to ensure he had no reason to stay behind. As if that wasn't enough, she also threatened to burn down his precious fields. Desperate, Dolan turned to Selena for help, but she refused. She was leaving too. Now that everyone knew Dolan's true identity, there was no reason for her to stay either. Dolan was overwhelmed by despair, feeling as if his entire life had been a dream, and he was still just a white dragon. Suddenly, Selena reappeared in front of him. Her presence snapped him out of it. He realized he had been trapped in an illusion created by his greatest enemy, the goddess of destruction, Calavith. She wasn't about to let Dolan escape so easily. To keep him in her grasp, she summoned a vicious dragon to fight him. However, Dolan effortlessly defeated it, infuriating Calavith. Despite being enemies, Calavith still saw Dolan as a friend, and in some way, he felt the same. Every time they fought, Dolan never finished her off. He saw her as his eternal rival. After a brief conversation, Calavith left his dream, promising to visit him again. Not long after Dolan woke up, Selena visited him. Together, they went to an inn to meet Christina. After witnessing the nightmare about his village, Dolan told Christina that he had decided to enroll in the Magic Academy. He wanted to gain knowledge to help improve the village. Christina was thrilled, saying it was a great idea and that she was excited to study with him. Shortly after, Dolan set off to take the entrance exam for the academy. Meanwhile, Selena was restless. She couldn't focus on her duties, putting those around her at risk. Her friends thought she should go to the academy too, but that was easier said than done. Lamia were human-eating demons. If Selena went with Dolan, people would be terrified of her. That night, Selena found herself lost in thought about Dolan. As she reminisced about their time together, she realized something. She had feelings for him. She wanted Dolan to be her mate and return with her to the Lamia village. However, she also wanted to respect his decision. Rather than become an obstacle in his path, she decided to leave and search for a potential husband elsewhere. The next morning, Dolan arrived at Selena's house to invite her to the academy, only to find that she was gone. She had left behind a farewell letter for him and the villagers. In it, she thanked Dolan for everything and expressed how much she had enjoyed living in the village with him. At the very end of the letter, she also confessed her feelings. Upon reading it, Dolan immediately set out to find her. He even transformed into his dragon form to search faster. Eventually, he found her at the swamp where they had first met. Nostalgia filled the air as they stood by the lake. Dolan apologized for making decisions on his own and explained that he had found a way for Selena to enter the academy by forming a slave contract between them. That way, even monsters could be admitted. Selena was stunned. Then, in a burst of frustration, she lashed out. Dolan still didn't understand her feelings. As a Lamia, she was a monster who ate people. If she followed him to the academy, he would be ostracized. He wouldn't have a single friend. Selena believed she would only hold him back from achieving success. Right in the middle of her outburst, Selena suddenly slipped and fell into the lake. Dolan instinctively jumped in after her. Once again, Selena begged him not to take her with him. She would only be a burden. But Dolan firmly reassured her. He wanted to experience the world with her. He told her to always be ready for whatever came next and to face any challenge together. Overwhelmed by his words, Selena was deeply moved, realizing that Dolan had truly accepted her for who she was. The next morning, Dolan received his acceptance letter from the academy. He had passed. Without wasting any time, he and Selena sealed the contract. Selena was surprisingly excited about being Dolan's slave, treating it like a symbolic bond between them. The villagers sent them off with pride, even Airy, blushing, promised to join them someday. And so Dolan, Selena, and Christina set off for the academy. Dolan steeled himself as he left his beloved village behind, while Selena grew anxious. What kind of people awaited them at the academy? Were they good, or were they cruel? As they traveled, Selena replayed Dolan's words in her head, how he wanted to explore the world with her. Wait, was that his way of proposing? The thought alone made her cheeks burn with embarrassment. That's it for this recap. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next adventure. Got any thoughts or theories? Drop them in the comments. Let's talk anime. See you in the next recap.